Host. We've seen this playbook before. Iran's regime is now claiming it will deliver detailed proposals to the United States within 2 weeks on the nuclear question. This vague promise came as the second round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks wrapped up today in Geneva. It all sounds remarkably familiar. Tehran dragging out diplomacy, buying time, hoping to maneuver the West into another weak deal that keeps the Ayatollahs firmly in power. That worked with Barack Obama in 2015, but President Trump operates very differently. The U.S. military continues its significant buildup at Iran's doorstep, and a strike against the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism looks increasingly possible, particularly if negotiations collapse. What would that mean for the U.S., Israel, and ordinary Iranians? Joining us to break it all down is Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Kenrikas, former international spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces and now a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, D.C. Jonathan, round 2 of talks just concluded in Geneva. Will these negotiations actually produce anything? Or is this the same stalling game we've always seen from Tehran? Jonathan. Iran's negotiators are talented and experienced, and they're doing exactly what they've always done, working overtime to buy time and wait for something to shift the world's attention away from their program. The level of trust between Washington and Tehran is extremely low, and rightfully so. Iran has a long history of using diplomacy as a delay tactic. That said, I believe this administration sees through it clearly and is carrying a very big stick. Here's the core problem. The minimum Iran is willing to discuss doesn't come close to what America requires. The U.S. and Israel are demanding zero enrichment on Iranian soil, none whatsoever. Iran has flatly refused. Washington and Jerusalem also want Iran's missiles capped at a range of no more than 300 miles, enough for self-defense, but not enough to threaten neighbors. Again, Iran says no. And of course, Israel insists Iran stop funding terror proxies across the Middle East entirely. Tehran won't budge on any of it. Their maximum offer doesn't meet America's minimum demands. These talks are unlikely to lead anywhere meaningful. But the administration still needs to give diplomacy its chance before exercising the military option that's clearly sitting on the table. Host. And that military option looks very real right now. We saw in spring 2025, Trump gave Iran 60 days to stand down their nuclear program. They refused. Then came Operation Rising Lion and Operation Midnight Hammer. The current U.S. buildup doesn't look coincidental. Walk us through what assets America has positioned in the region right now. Jonathan. What we're seeing is a major and ongoing concentration of strike and offensive capabilities in the Middle East. The Lincoln and Ford carrier battle groups are in the region, bringing enormous firepower, capable of hitting targets anywhere inside Iran while keeping American personnel at a high level of security. Beyond offensive capabilities, there are significant air and missile defense assets protecting U.S. forces and supplementing Israel's defenses. There are also credible reports of special forces operating in the region with the ability to conduct operations inside Iran if the president chooses that path. And that option should absolutely remain on the table. A word about the Iranian people. They are now more than 40 days past the massacre of tens of thousands of their own citizens on Iranian streets. They are waiting and watching. I believe they will not be abandoned. If the Iranian regime gets away with slaughtering its own civilians, every dictator on earth will take note that atrocities go unpunished. That is not a message the world can afford to send. Host. Prime Minister Netanyahu is at the White House, their 7th meeting in a year. Is Israel coming in alongside the U.S. in a potential strike on Iran? Jonathan. This is a U.S.-led operation. Israel will not act without American approval and coordination. You can read that clearly from the statements coming out of those meetings. Israel will, of course, defend itself if Iran attacks unprovoked. and it has the air force and intelligence to do so effectively. But the lead here belongs to Washington. From Israel's perspective, the Iranian regime is the source of decades of terror, murder, and regional instability. It has been arming and funding every one of Israel's enemies for 30 to 35 years. It is the head of the snake. Israelis understand that a narrow window of opportunity exists right now. And based on whatever the president decides, Israel would willingly and enthusiastically participate to help change the trajectory of the entire Middle East. 47 years of tyranny over the Iranian people could finally end. The prosperity, commerce, culture, and cooperation that a free Iran could unleash would be extraordinary. I am genuinely optimistic that this is where things are heading. Host. Shifting to Gaza. Hamas is still refusing to disarm. Phase 2 of the peace process seems stalled. What's the situation on the ground? Jonathan. Roughly half the Gaza Strip remains under Hamas control. I'll be direct. I'm not satisfied with how this is developing. Hamas has the political backing of Turkey and Qatar, and they are not going to voluntarily disarm. What this creates is a recipe for future catastrophe. Even if a technocratic government takes over day-to-day administration of Gaza, an armed Hamas lurking in the background changes everything. It's like placing a zero in a multiplication equation. It reduces everything else to nothing. Hamas will eventually drag Gaza back to war. The only force capable of actually disarming Hamas is the IDF, and I fear that may become unavoidable. Host. Turkey is an increasingly alarming factor here. Erdogan is openly Islamist, covets Jerusalem, backs Hamas, and yet Turkey remains a NATO member. How serious is this problem? Jonathan. Americans need to understand that Erdogan is an imperialist. He dreams of reconstituting the Ottoman Empire. He has said openly, in Turkish, not in English, that his ambitions include Jerusalem and restoring past Ottoman glory. Couple that imperial vision with the political Islam he promotes, Sharia law over civil rights and democratic governance, and you have a genuinely dangerous actor. Turkey provides the muscle, Qatar provides the money. Together, they are working to preserve Hamas as the local Muslim Brotherhood franchise in Gaza. From an American standpoint, Turkey is not a loyal NATO ally. It seeks U.S. advanced technology while maintaining working relationships with Russia and China, two of America's primary adversaries. Wherever Iranian influence recedes in the region, Turkish forces move in to fill the space. We're watching it happen across Syria right now, and the people suffering most from this are the region's minorities: Kurds, Yazidis, Druze, Christians. Millions of people facing abuse, abduction, and violence under the shadow of this Turkey-Syria-Qatar axis. The Kurds in particular were indispensable American allies in the fight against ISIS. They deserve far better than what they're getting. Host. Final question. What's the mood inside Israel right now after nearly 2.5 years of war? Jonathan. People are battle-weary, understandably. The stories continuing to emerge about what the hostages endured, the physical and psychological abuse, are deeply painful. But strategically, Israelis are strong. The economy, remarkably, is performing well. People are working hard, staying focused, and there is genuine hope that if we navigate this period correctly, we'll emerge into a fundamentally different and better Middle East. If the Iranian regime falls, that's freedom for 90 million Iranians and a transformed region. Most Israelis understand there may be one more difficult chapter ahead before that outcome is reached, and they are prepared to face it if it means a safer and more peaceful future on the other side.